I was supposed to cover the International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee ceremony, the class of 2020, 2021, 2022, the trilogy. I really want to still talk about that. First of all, I just want to again shout out Lionel Thompson for speaking his piece on some of the things that he said. It's really great having actual boxer from Las Vegas in there. I wish him nothing but the best. Um, you know, of course, I have my own opinions and views on different things. It doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with someone on everything they say, but I would say this that I got mad respect for him, a Christian brother like myself as well, and I just want to see him in the best possible position he could possibly be before his career is up. So we're looking to see what happens with uh, Lonnie uh, Thompson. Shout out to him. I want to talk about the class of 2020, some of the speeches that went into the induction ceremony that I thought was worth the while to talk to you guys about. So I'm just going to chop it up with you guys for about maybe an extra hour, then call it a day. I might have to wrap it up on this, but I really wanted to talk about this. So the class of 2020 in the induction ceremony. A 2020 class involved boxers like the great Bernard Hopkins, the great Shane Mosley, the great Juan Manuel Marquez. Um, those boxers, there was also some lady boxers in there, um, and Trimar and some others, some of the pioneers. Of course, Christy Martin also was inducted into the class of 2020 International Boxing Hall of Fame. Now, before I go into anything else, it was someone on Facebook who was saying, how are these women getting inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame and they don't even have WBC, WBA, IBF, or WBO championships under their belts, or that who did they really face? Okay, first of all, let's get into this in a real way. Women's boxing, has not experienced the luxury of monetary investment into it, first of all, and second of all, has not got the backing and support of major sanctioning bodies until very recently. In fact, the first WBC inaugural champion for the 168-pound division was Layla Ali. Before that, we had the WIBA and the WIBF, which were the major sanctioning bodies that held women's boxing. Women's boxing had their own sanctioning bodies. Now we have all of women's boxing under the major four sanctioning bodies that make it major undisputed. To understand, back in the day, there was no Olympic amateur program for women in women's boxing. So in Christy Martin's time, and even in the 1970s, when women first got their license to box, till very late, in Christy Martin in the 1990s, these women didn't have an amateur boxing program like that. They didn't have Olympic to be able to go to the Olympics and win Olympic medals. Okay? And the major sanctioning bodies, the four major sanctioning bodies, wasn't supporting women's boxing. So it's really about pioneership. And Christy Martin is the first person to truly, in a significant way, bring attention to women's boxing on the undercard of Mike Tyson's pay-per-view events. Okay? So when I hear people ignorantly talk about why is Christy Martin, who she beat and all of this, listen, you have to understand the history of women's boxing. If you don't understand the history of women's boxing, please do not talk about it. Just don't talk about it. It's come a long way. So anyway, Christy Martin, rightfully so, has been inducted first into the Boxing Hall of Fame, and she is now a Hall of Famer, which she should be and deserves to be for the attention she brought to women's boxing in the sport of boxing. She was the first person to do so in a significant way, and have a significant number of fights, and actually face other women. Women's boxing goes all the way back to the early 1900s, early 1800s when women were boxing, but they were boxing in closed platforms. It was illegal for women to box and get licensed in public. It was only until 1976, in a court appeal, overturned a decision by the New York State Athletic Commission to keep 3 women from getting their license to box. One of those women actually ended up facing a kickboxer and knocking his ass out cold in a boxing match. And that's when women started to get respect in boxing. I understood that boxing is not just a man's sport, but boxing is for warriors, whether they're men or women or other. And that it's a form of fighting. And it's still a long process. There are a lot of chauvinistic people and chauvinistic men out here talking about, women can't beat men. All kinds of stupid things I hear still to this day. It's very archaic how the thinking in boxing is. But then again, a lot of people don't know shit about boxing. A lot of people don't know what's going on in that ring. So it's not surprising, really, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, women's boxing reached its pinnacle when we had Amanda Serrano versus Taylor. I forgot what her first name is. Katie Taylor. Yes, Katie Taylor, which headlined, and it was a tremendous success in Madison Square Garden. And we look forward to more. They're supposed to have a part 2, actually, of that fight. We look forward to more of these things. In boxing, in the sport of boxing, I love boxing, y'all. But it's great to see Christy Martin put her place in this trilogy. Now, it's a special event because it was a trilogy. It happened, it's this is a once in a lifetime kind of thing where you have all from 3 classes, all the major, Hall of Famers come together and do their speeches. Christy Martin's speech was a great one. She was speaking about domestic violence at the end of her 2-minute speech or induction speech. And she spoke to me about something very important in the world today, domestic violence. She was a victim of domestic violence. Her husband and trainer stabbed her multiple times, shot her multiple times, tried to shoot himself afterwards. He's now in prison. And she was saying, while she was giving this speech, which was 2 minutes long, 40 people have fallen victim to domestic violence. That's how prevalent it is. And it's 7 minutes now, so that's triple that. It means 120 people have already, in this little speech that I'm having with you guys, fallen victim to domestic violence. And we have to do something about that, ladies and gentlemen. We can't be having this happening all the time like that. Come on now. So she drew attention to that in her Hall of Fame speech, which I thought was just admirable. Of course, she being the first woman inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame is now a sister to the brothers. And, all of the inductees were very accepting of one another, very congratulatory of one another. And this was a general theme, and, always about support. When she first had to introduce some of the earlier, Gene Fullmer, those kinds of great fighters. They kind of put their arms around her so that she would have the support by them. And in boxing, a lot of people don't realize you have to have support. It's a community support, whether it's a fan supporting you or whoever's supporting you. You gotta have support in boxing. Even though they say it's one of the loneliest sports in the world, where you're responsible for yourself, you win and you live and die by the sword. Still, at the same time, boxing is a sport where people are very encouraging, very positive, and very supporting around each other. Even when guys are competitors, after the end of the competition, they may be friends, have a drink with one another, be congratulatory to each other, even troubleshoot what each other may have done good and what they may have done bad. That's boxing. I listen to Devin Haney at the end of his fights and that kind of. So it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, and as such, it's just great to see all these guys in the Boxing Hall of Fame. And one of them was Christy Martin. That was her speech, her induction speech. Now, the other person that I want to talk about in the class of 2020, Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins paid tribute to a great referee in the sport of boxing. A gentleman who's probably not been inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, but still somebody that Bernard Hopkins owes his ring, his inductee ring, to. His name is Jackie Fields, I believe it was his name. Hope I don't have his name wrong. And I believe Jackie Fields, if I'm correct, his name. When Hopkins was in prison, he used to live up the street from him. Came to prison. Hopkins was boxing in prison, of course, and going to tournaments and stuff, and said to him, you know, he would support him whenever he comes out. Just come see him. And you know, he was able to help Hopkins find a place, get management, you know, for himself, you know, show him the ropes. And in Hopkins, I believe it was his second title shot against Segundo Marcano in, I believe it was in, what was it, Colombia? What was it? Ecuador. In Ecuador. High altitude Ecuador. When Hopkins got dropped twice, I think, by Segundo Marcano, and still came back to draw that fight. I believe if it wasn't that fight or the other fight, Jackie Fields was refereeing it. I hope it's Jackie Fields. I hope I'm not brutalizing this man's name, but if it's the wrong name, you guys correct me on it. He supported Hopkins throughout his career, and because of him, Hopkins became world champion, and because of him and his support, you know, Hopkins became the legend that he is today. And he did not return back to prison. You know, Hopkins came from prison, y'all. You gotta understand. And he wasn't a victim to the system. He didn't go back into the system. He ended up breaking free from the system through boxing and made something of himself. A great, you know, legend. Made a legend of himself. But he didn't do it alone. It was the help of selfless, kind people and supportive people. And you gotta understand that every single Hall of Famer in that Hall of Fame didn't do it on their own. They owe it to certain people. Some of them owe it to their fathers. Some of them owe it to their families. Some of them owe it to strangers who supported them along the way. So it was a journey. And, you know, I want to talk a little bit more about that journey in a business in a minute. But I would say, suffice it to say that, you know, some of the most, you know, skilled people, sometimes you don't hear about them until much later. And it's because, you know, they put in the miles. They're paying their dues, you know. It's a long journey, you know what I'm saying? And I still, you know, I shout out to Tevin Farmer, you know, shout out to, you know, for making it, Devin Haney for making it, you know, to some degree, Demetrius Andre has made it a little bit. But let me get down to some more stuff, okay? Let me get down to more stuff. Because I don't agree with Lionel Harris that Mayweather necessarily bought his championships or bought his wins. And again, Lionel, he thinks that Floyd lost a couple fights. I don't think Floyd lost a couple fights because I see fights but at the same time, I do understand where Lionel Thompson's coming from in the sense that big money, A-side money, you know, they will favor the A-side. You know what I mean? This is just the reality of the situation with boxing. But at the same time, because money does talk, bullshit does walk, but Bebo beat Canelo. That goes against the money. That goes against the money, right? Right? Every now and then something goes against the money. You know what I mean? Rigondeaux beating Donaire and getting penalized for it. You know, Thompson versus Uzcategui. And Thompson beats Uzcategui. You know what I mean? Go against the grain, baby. Go against the grain. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's boxing. Boxing always been that way, though. But I'll just say that, you know, Bernard Hopkins, man. A man who promoted his own self. You know, managed his own self. You know, and again, for guys like Lionel Thompson, guys like Roy Jones Jr., guys like Bernard Hopkins, they managed their own self. They wasn't with no promotional company or nothing, you know what I'm saying? And in this day and age with social media, if you can get the media behind you, especially new media behind you, things can happen, you know what I'm saying? They can keep your name in their mouth. You know, I was thinking about a Philadelphia fighter, I forgot his name, it was heavyweight. And he couldn't get no damn fights, boy. But he finally started getting fights. You know why he started getting fights? Because people kept on bombarding. When is this guy going to fight? When he's going to fight somebody? You know what I'm saying? You know, we got to keep the pressure on them with guys like Lionel Harris. I think he deserves, Lionel Thompson, sorry. I think he deserves, you know, to get at least a shot at the championship at some point. He pays his dues, man. This dude been fighting people all the time. You know, so that's the hope, and we'll see. I know a lot of people duck and dodge this dude. But I hope he gets his shots. You know what I'm saying? I know he needs to get his shine. But back to what I was saying, because I got distracted. Class of 2020, Bernard Hopkins. Somebody helps you to get there. I learned that, we need each other. We need to support each other. You can talk about people. It's people relations. I'm not very good at it, but that's what it counts for. My heart's in the right place, but I'm not really good at it. I'm more to myself, which is not great. It's not a very good thing, but we're gonna try and make it happen. But it's very hard. It's very hard because I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Some people be really stupid at times. I'm just being real. In the class of 2020, Shane Mosley gave a tribute to his father. You know what I'm saying? He gave tribute to his family, that he feels like he's fighting for his family when he gets in there to fight in the ring. He's very grateful to be also there with his boxing family, all the Hall of Famers on the stage that helped him to step up his game. And he's talked about Roy Jones Jr., Floyd Mayweather. He talked about Andre Ward, Ant Wolf, Layla Ali. He spoke about those guys, those people, how they performed, made him want to step up his game and do even better. And shout out to Shane Mosley, legend. Let me say something. Shane Mosley jumped up from lightweight, man. He jumped up from lightweight and fought Oscar De La Hoya at welterweight, man, and won. And there's a handful of lightweights that ever did that. Jump up to welterweight and beat a welterweight. There are a handful of welterweights that jumped up to middleweight and beat a middleweight. I'm talking about the middleweight champion. I'm talking about Oscar was a pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world again. After Tito had beaten him. He got back to the spot because Tito moved out. And Oscar was a cash cow. And Shane Mosley beat Oscar in his prime, man. Prime Mosley versus Oscar. He beat Oscar. And it was a hell of a fight, too. And he beat Oscar again. I don't think he beat Oscar the second time, but hey, whatever. I'm just saying, that was a hell of a performance, a hell of an accomplishment. Then he went up to super welterweight. Again, he became the #1 super welterweight in the world. Came back, 4 losses, and then he came back and beat Antonio Margarito after destroying Ricardo Mayorga to become champion at welterweight, the top guy, the man at welterweight for a second time. So he was the man 3 times in his career. Get the hell out of here, man. Shane Mosley, hell of a career, hell of a fighter. So Shane Mosley, he also spoke, and it was again about family. It was about support. It was about inspiration, and he's a very inspirational person. He particularly said his father was very important in his career, so he gives a lot of tribute to his father. And he says this ring means so much to him. Marquez, when he went up to do his induction speech, he spoke about country and how country was so important to him, the Mexican heritage, fighting for Mexico, the fact that he always wanted to be a champion, and then he wanted to be a legend, and he definitely accomplished both things. He said the highlight of his career was the quadrilogies he had with Manny Pacquiao. He thinks Manny Pacquiao is the greatest fighter he has ever faced. And it was just great to hear him in his acceptance speech, speak so highly. He really, totally loved his country, and he was doing it for his country and the Mexican heritage in boxing, which was a shout out to Juan Marquez on that. So now we move to the class of 2021. We got some bad mama jammers in 2021. We had Ann Wolf. She spoke about how she reached that finally she was getting the respect she deserved from her peers, and she felt accepted. And anybody knew Ann Wolf, she a bad mama jammer. And again, there are detractors who say, well, who Ann Wolf face? Or what belt does she get? Well, guess what? The WBC wasn't around like that with Ann Wolf, So she had other belts. She had the WIBA. She had the WIBF. Those kinds of belts. She had the IBA. You know what I'm saying? So y'all have to accept that. She was a 3-time, 4-time world champion. Now, Ann Wolf was a bad woman. Very strong, very good boxer. Decent skills and everything. But she fought. She was the first boxer that really fought like a boxer. God damn it! Like she wasn't just flinging hands. She had power. She had strength and everything. Conditioning was ridiculous. She was always in shape. You know what I mean? So Ann Wolf, and she had that rough around the edges kind of edginess. You gotta love Ann Wolf, man. And sincere to her heart, hardworking woman, you know, believe in God and stuff. And she said something. She said, when God says you can, that's how she opened it up. She said, when God says you can, ain't nobody can stop you. You know what I'm saying? And I love it. And we all know her excellent training of James Kirkland, you know, and just her pedigree. So, you know, she didn't have nothing handed to her. She didn't have it easy at all. And it was just great hearing her induction speech from the heart, man, and just seeing her speak to her children and everything. You could tell deep down in her soul this meant something to her. So I was just happy for her. And then we had Layla Ali, who stepped up to the plate. And Layla Ali, what I love about Layla Ali, let me be real. Layla Ali was the daughter of Muhammad Ali, but she never lived off the name Ali. She made a legacy for her own damn self. Of course, like I said before, she was the inaugural WBC champion, you know, and she had very successful defenses for a couple of fights. People said she ducked Ann Wolf. That's not true. She was at 168. Ann Wolf was at 175. If y'all even knew your boxing history, you would know that. They wanted to face each other. They wanted to face each other, but it never came down to happening. But Ali was never in the same division as Ann Wolf. Now, if you tell me that Ali, you might say Ali ducked the Russian lady. Maybe you got something there. But the Russian lady, she was on the come up. Ali was about to close off her career. So what happened was Ali retired. And after Ali retired, the Russian girl, she got the belts, and she became the first unified, undisputed woman champion when it comes to WBA and WBC. All right? And it's all good. Boxing was moving on. But suffice it to say, Layla Ali, of course, undefeated champion. She fought Christy Martin, had a win over Christy Martin. That's about it. I think that's the only Hall of Fame name she had, but she had other people that faced, Joe Frazier's daughter and that kind of stuff. And they was for real. Layla Ali used to throw hands at first, and then she got more refined, and she got to become a better and better boxer as it moved along. She didn't need a box, but she loved it. She loved fighting, so might as well just get her into boxing. And she proved to be something, man. She proved to be a force to reckon in her time. Not saying she would, I ain't gonna say no more than that. And much respect to her. Said she had to earn her father's respect, because a lot of people say they want to do X, Y, and Z, but they're not serious about it. It was just like a novelty thing, but it wasn't for Layla. She was dead serious about it, and she thanked the Mayweathers, particularly Roger Mayweather, for helping her train, as well as Floyd Mayweather Sr. Of course, she also talked about her other trainers, such as Buddy McGirt, her first trainer, and another great legendary trainer, which I just can't remember his name right now. And, class of 2021, man. Shit. Andre S.O.G. Ward stepped up to the plate in his acceptance speech. And Andre Ward spoke from the heart. He spoke about his wife, first of all. Spoke about God, of course, starting off with him and being unashamed to represent him wherever his father planted that foundation in him. He spoke about his wife and her support and her being with him through the thick and thin. So did Roy Jones Jr. We will talk about him in a minute. He also talked about, the motivation to go home to his kids, his family, and to continue to win. He talked about Virgil Hunter, his godfather, and Virgil Hunter's wife, and the support that they carried him through. He talked about, the preparation and how he had to handle criticism, and he had to handle, the kind of unfair way how people will assess, black fighters, assess black individuals and people, and I thought, it was just, it was one of those things where, once again, I felt like, I hear you, brother, because you do excellent things, and still you get chopped down for it. They always have something to say, you know what I mean? And then he talked about also, how nobody could question now that he's in the Boxing Hall of Fame. They can't question his pedigree, you know what I mean? And this was always a goal of his to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. He also talked about the people who he has to mention, which was the longevity of Bernard Hopkins and the way how he kept his body in order. He kept his temple in order. Very disciplined. He talked about Roy Jones Jr., the entrepreneurship and the business savvy of Roy Jones Jr. And then he talked about Floyd Mayweather. Not just the consistency and the brilliance, but he also talked about the fact that Floyd Mayweather was a guy who backed up what he said. No matter what, he gonna back it up because he trained his ass off. He be training, the hard work, the dedication that he put into the sport, the blood, sweat, and tears. That's what he learned from him, the work ethic. So, Andre Ward gave a tribute to these great legends who was right there in the Boxing Hall of Fame with him. That's crazy. This is ridiculous, mind-blowing just to be able to talk to these people right there because they right there with you. It was just the best thing ever. And on a big side note, Terrence Crawford also had something to say in the Boxing Hall of Fame. He talked again how it was an honor to be there with fighters that he had watched since he was a kid. And he gave, again, credit to Floyd, to Andre Ward, not Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins passed it to Andre Ward. It was given to Andre Ward and Roy Jones Jr. You know what I mean? And then in the class of 2021, we start with Andre Ward. We work our way through. This was quite a year. Vladimir Klitschko came up and he was talking about how happy he was to be inducted into it, and he's talking about the war in the Ukraine and how things are going there. And then he kind of said to Roy, "What you doing, man? Supporting the Russian government is invading." But Roy really had nothing to do with that. But nonetheless, I hear his plea. I understand where he's coming from. But it was just great to have him inducted from afar to the Boxing Hall of Fame. Vladimir Klitschko, legendary when it comes to how to throw their jab and the different kinds of jabs and all that. And then in the class of 2021, it's a heavy-hitting class we're talking about here. We had Andre Ward, him, and then we had Floyd Mayweather. Well, Floyd Mayweather, the day before the induction, he cried because he was so happy to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame, and he had said that we are all TBE. Once you strive to do the best you can and you exhibit excellence, that's TBE. And then the beautiful thing about it was that he acknowledged everybody on the stage. He talked about all of the great legendary champions and how he loved all of them, and they're just so extraordinary what they did. And he gave credit to all of them on the stage. He also gave credit to his father. He had forgot Roger Mayweather that day before. Well, in this day, he said he was going to talk about himself. But before he did, he gave tribute to his mother and his father. He dedicated the ring to his father, so his father kept the ring. His mother kept the induction book. And he thanked them both in a big way. Without them, he would not be there. He thanked again all of the inductees and all of the great legendary fighters that came before him. He said, "Without you guys, I'd never be where I am today." Then he went into himself and he started to give himself a little praise, a little pat on the back. He talked about how, he had beaten more legendary champions than any fighter in the history of boxing, and how he had made the biggest gates, the biggest set of money ever in the history of boxing. And he talked about how he sort of changed the sport of boxing by having random blood and urine testing for PEDs, which we know is still rampant in the sport of boxing, but at least with VADA there and with some other boxing bodies in place, maybe they can regulate it a little bit more. But of course, cheaters are going to try and find a way around these things, but you got to be a clean person, man. And I'm glad VADA is there. I just hope VADA tightens it up a little bit more. Now, again, I heard my boy talking about PED use in terms of Lionel Thompson, and that seems to be a real problem in the sport of boxing still to this day. And some people are beating tests. I don't know if they're beating the VADA testing, but some people are still beating tests and still coming with stuff in their system, which is what Lionel Thompson was talking about. And he particularly referred to Ostateki, who he faced, who was caught dirty before facing David Benavidez. So, I'm glad they caught him at least, cheating. And like Lionel said, these guys be cheating because they not sure they could beat the fighter without cheating. You know what I mean? So I get kudos to Lionel Thompson on all these things because we hear those rumors, but now he's confirming with facts, and he would know more about what's going on inside of boxing than anybody else. You know what I mean? So now I'm not saying that people can't use PEDs that are legal, performance enhancing drugs that are legal. And again, SNAC seems to be doing a good job with that. The Food and Drug Administration seems to be passing certain things. Now I don't know if Victor Conte is still doing this shit on fighters. I can't really say, but what I can say is, as far as I can see, at least the products that he's offering are passing the Food and Drug Administration tests, and they seem to be, VADA approved. It's okay. VADA's cool with that. So VADA is probably the most stringent box group in America right now. USADA too. And the principal ones. The problem with VADA's president was saying is that they don't have enough funds to actually go year round with every single elite fighter, so they only test them at certain times. But I say VADA just randomly test these motherfuckers, man. Randomly test them. You can't have cheaters. And I know, Paulie Malignaggi was talking about this as well. Performance enhancing drugs in boxing and how prevalent it is. And that if you don't cheat, you can't keep up with the other people. Well, Lionel, let me say something, Paulie. Guess what? Your boy Lionel Thompson, he don't cheat. And he's still keeping up on kicking ass. So all I'm saying is, y'all need to keep your conscience in order. And them cheaters, y'all not real fighters and real success if you cheating like that. I don't want to hear it. Keep the sport clean. That's something that Floyd purports to want. I believe him. I also believe that that he legitimately won all his fights, but I understand the big money thing. He is the A side, so that would help favor a fight in his favor. But from what I see, at least from what I see from his fights, I thought he won all his fights. And I ain't even fronting about that. I'm straight. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be straight with y'all. I think he won all his fights. I'm not trying to be naive or anything, but I'm just saying. And I could prove it. You know what I mean? So I don't believe that bullshit that, he didn't win his fights. Especially coming up. And yeah, he was with Top Rank, but especially coming up. I know what fucking Larry Merchant and freaking, sorry, y'all mightn't like me for this, but I'm going to say it like it is. Jim Lampley and fucking Larry Merchant messed up the sport of boxing. Made people dumber for it. Okay? And fuck them. Alright? And y'all mightn't like when I say these things, but I don't care. I'm a fan. I'm going to say what I have to say. Alright? And y'all ain't going to like me for it. And yes, I ain't supposed to be cursing as a Christian, but nonetheless, I'm going to say what I got to say. Because, let me be honest with you guys. Right? I'm not a guy that just loves to curse and whatever. It's just, man, boxing just took many steps backward when these guys came into the sport. And people can say all they want to say. You can spin it how much you want to spin it. That's the truth. Now, do I think that Roy Jones Jr. with a different commentator, say he had some other commentator from the past, would have been seen differently? Absolutely. Okay. You think an incredible fighter like Pernell Whitaker would have been seen differently if there was different people announcing him? Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. You think Floyd Mayweather would have been the way how he is today if Larry Merchant was trying to down his ass and Jim Lampley and trying to bring all kinds of dirt on this dude? Absolutely. Alright? So, let's be real about this, and I think the sport suffered. I think people become so pessimistic and negative because of the stupidity of Larry Merchant, who don't know shit about boxing, talking about boxing, and Larry Merchant, who didn't know his ass from his head in boxing. Okay, now we actually got boxers. Paulie Malignaggi is a good commentator. More or less a good. He got a little bias, but I ain't tripping. He ain't Larry Merchant. He ain't Larry Merchant. You know what I mean? I could take on Paulie any day because I know where Paulie's coming from. I ain't got no disrespect for you, Paulie. And I know Paulie will call a spade when it is what it is. That's what I like about Paulie. You know what I mean? I like Antonio Tarver. Y'all dissing Antonio Tarver. He's a boxer and he calls it down the middle so sensibly. I like them. I like Roy Jones Jr. Hell yes. Okay? I like Juan Manuel Marquez. Okay? I like these guys. I'm glad boxers are commentating on boxing, and boxers with clear memory. You know why they have clear memory? Yeah, they might get knocked out once or twice, whatever, but they didn't take excessive punishment in their careers. So they still clear in their mind. You know what I mean? So I mean, I like this, man. You know, Timothy Bradley. You know, I like Timothy Bradley. I don't care. I don't care. I like Timothy Bradley. I even like Sergio Mora. I like Sergio Mora. Shit. I like Sugar Ray Leonard. I like any person who boxed and they commented on a fight. I'm gonna be with you because you actually know what's going on in there. You've done it. So you know, even there's a guy on social media, you know, but he talk a whole bunch of shit for real. He say, you know, he's a pro boxer and all of that, and he probably is. But that motherfucker talks some real wild ass shit that make no sense. Sometimes, you know, I listen to K-Line Bunders. K-Line Bunders told me the jab will not be the key for Devin Haney versus George Kambosos. He said it'll be bunches and bunches and all kinds of. I know he was biased to George Kambosos, but whatever. Right? It was wrong. But the point is, I respect him because he's a two-time world champion and the oldest super welterweight world champion. I ain't gonna talk to him any old how. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna talk to him any old how. I'm not gonna do that. That's the champ. Champ can say whatever the fuck he want to say. You understand what I'm saying? You know, you have to have a certain respect for people who have done it and been in the ring. You know what I mean? And whether they're right or wrong, you just have to, like, you know, Larnell done this at the highest level. Larnell's supposed to be a world champion right about now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna disrespect Larnell. I may disagree with him. I ain't disrespecting him. You know what I mean? Nah, he did it, and he sparred, and he know firsthand what he saw, what he felt. You know what I mean? I'm not just gonna disrespect that. All right. So you know, there's certain people I disrespect, and you know why I disrespect them? Because they disrespectful of the sport of boxing. I know Lana can never be disrespectful of the sport of boxing when you've been boxing and taking it, you know, taking them punches and getting hit with certain shots and shit. You know, you respect the fucking sport of boxing. You know what I mean? Sorry about the F-bomb. You know what I'm saying? You want to respect the sport because this is not a sport. Okay, this is not a sport where, you know, people can just talk any old shit and they could go in the ring and act like that. You know what I mean? Because if you don't respect the sport, man, you get in that ring, your ass about to get torn up. Torn up. This is not one of those sports. You better know what you're saying. Right? People always say, well, I'm entitled to my opinion. Listen, you're a fan. That's why you're saying that shit. You're saying that shit because you're a fan. But guess what? You could be entitled to your opinion, but if your opinion wrong, it'll be seen in the fucking ring. You understand what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? It's going to show in the ring. Because it's not just about opinions, motherfucker. So, that's what I try to explain to people, you know. I try to explain it to people, but they don't understand. Some things is not subject to opinion, motherfucker. It's not my opinion that he hit me in my face. If he hit me in my motherfucking face. You know what I'm saying? It's not an opinion anymore. Oh, people, they want to express their opinion. Fuck that opinion. Fuck your opinion. There's a point at which opinions don't matter. Reality matters. Okay? So that's all I gotta say. So that's why I wish boxing fans would actually box. Get their ass in the ring and spar somebody. Because then you begin to realize, fuck my opinions. It don't matter what I said. I just felt that punch. Okay? And then the reality sets in about what really the motherfucking boxing is. What it really is. Now you beginning to understand what boxing is. But all them little couch potatoes all like to talk about blood, sweat, and tears, and blood and guts, and glory. Get your fucking ass in the ring and see what blood, sweat, and tears, and blood and glory is. You start getting your face punched in. Sorry about the F-bombs, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying, a lot of people talk. We good at talking, eh? We good at talking shit too. Very few of us can back that shit up. Very few of us. So respect anybody who put on gloves and step in that ring if your ass ain't stepping in that ring. If you don't want to get in that ring, if you don't want to be tested, then shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Because you cannot be talking bad about somebody who's got more balls than you to do what you wouldn't do. Yeah, class of 2021. Shout out to them. And then we had the class of 2022. Icing on the cake. Started off with Holly Holm. She choked up, man, about the support that she got in her career, how blessed she was. And by the way, let me go back to Ann Wolf. She said she was blessed beyond measure. Everything she wanted in her life, she got. She said all she wants from the Lord is peace of mind. All right? Class of 2022, Holly Holm. She choked up as well. She was about to cry when she thought about all the support her family had for her. You know, she comes from a Christian family and everything. And, you know, she has had the same management and the same promoter her entire career. From boxing, kickboxing, into MMA. And so she is the only person in the history of boxing to be a 3-time world champion in boxing. I'm talking about WBC, WBA champion. And also, she has been world champion in MMA, beating the best MMA female fighter of that time. So, kudos to Holly Holm, man. She made history. 4-time world champion across MMA and boxing. This is crazy. And her speech was about the same management she used. They went straight into MMA and started working the program. And now she's in New Mexico, Albuquerque. And she is just doing some crazy shit. And yeah, she's losing fights and stuff. But, you know, you win some, you lose some. And but she's a legend, and she has been inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame for that. After Holly Holm, we got Miga Cotto. Miga Cotto, he thanked his family primarily. That was primarily what he did, but he also thanked the Hall for being inducted. And then we had the class of 2022. We had, who else we had? There was one more person, but I can't remember who it is, which is very bad. But the class of 2022, with Holly Holm, who was the man, Miga Cotto, I can't remember who else. Then we had some promoters. We had Lou DiBella, who was very thankful, and he was speaking about how he got into boxing, how, you know, boxing won him over, how he stayed around with HBO and then moved off into his own promotional company, and how blessed he was to travel the world, meet all these great people, and he's very thankful for that. And then we had also Kathy Duva, following in the footsteps of her husband, and you know, how grateful she is also to be in that position, to be honored like that. And so that was a class of 20. That was different promoters who were inducted into the Hall of Fame, as well as Dr. Margaret Goodman, who was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, the president of VADA, introducing anti-doping, voluntary anti-doping into the sport of boxing. So, you know, I mean, it was just a great, all-around, beautiful, and, you know, of course, besides James Toney, how can I forget James Toney? And Roy Jones Jr. Oh, shit. Roy Jones Jr. was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, and he said he started entertaining, and he's going to leave y'all entertaining, and he talked about y'all must have forgotten. He brought in some lines for the, you know, using the Boxing Hall of Fame lyrics in there. It was great. And then James Toney, of course, went up. He's pretty brief with his speech because he said he was hungry. But it was great to see him up there as well, you know, giving tribute to his trainers, as well as he was thanking his family. So that was basically it for James Toney. So that was the the International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee speeches with the different International Boxing Hall of Fame inductees, and it's just great to have seen that and to witness it. It was a very special occasion. It's a very beautiful place. Canastota is a very special place. Um, Besides that, Franchon Cruz was there. Bernard Hopkins giving her props, mentioning her name. There were several other people. Antonio Tarver was there. Sean Porter was there, and Floyd Mayweather mentioned Sean Porter. He mentioned Terrence Crawford. He mentioned Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford. Right. Just a beautiful thing to see the next generation being promoted. At the end of the ceremony, Floyd was interviewed, and Floyd talked about again there being too many champions in the sport of boxing. That he was going to have an exhibition that was upcoming. He said that Andrew Ward, was saying to him that he would like to have a fight with Jake Paul. I don't know how true that was because Timothy Bradley said Andrew Ward said no such thing to him. So I don't know how true that is, but that is basically it. Of course, Floyd was interviewed about many other things. His exhibition with Ryzen is with some MMA fighter from Ryzen. I don't know what the guy's name is, a Japanese dude, which he promoted after the induction ceremony. Excuse me for yawning. The induction ceremony, but really good stuff. Okay. So that's basically what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I'm going to catch you guys a great thing. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for seeing this. Like and share and subscribe. Don't forget you can donate also below via PayPal. I'm going to talk to you guys later on what you need. I'm coming back with another video. I have another video to do. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm what you need. Peace.